And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very special presentation on the 24th day of November 2022. It's 24 degrees and cloudy in Brisbane today. It's not too bad temperature-wise, even though it's 24 degrees. The heat factor is not there. Later on, it will get towards about 28 degrees. That's what we've been told. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, moving on with the show, what do we have for you today? The general news, and then we have the daily India report, and we will be finishing off with the upcoming functions and events. So right now, let's get to the news. First of all, Victoria, heading for that election. What does it look like? There are predictions that it could be a hung parliament.
Daniel Andrews is Australia's longest-serving current Premier, and he's vying for a third term in power.
Only Labor is doing what matters.
He has fervent supporters and vitriolic detractors.
Now even our own unions are admitting he's a prick. Don't let him get away with it. Put Labor last.
The Liberals have brought back their 2018 challenger, Matthew Guy.
For the sake of all of those people impacted by Daniel Andrews and his world record lockdowns, we must win this election.
Now he's back, and so are his plans for cuts. Don't vote for the Liberals.
What we've really got at the moment is two pretty unpopular parties and two reasonably unpopular leaders.
Polls show voters care most about bread and butter issues, but they're also concerned about public integrity.
Although the major parties in policy terms have focused around health and cost of living issues, probity issues, integrity issues have kept on bubbling to the surface during this campaign.
We begin with breaking news. Daniel Andrews is at the centre of another secret anti-corruption investigation.
It's the fourth time this government is involved in an anti-corruption commission investigation.
And Liberal leader Matthew Guy has been referred to the anti-corruption watchdog
over allegations his former Chief of Staff Mitch Catlin tried to get around political donation laws.
Labor was the clear favourite heading into this election, but new polling shows it won't be an easy win.
The opinion polls are indicating there's enough seats for Labor and the Greens to have a majority. Now, whether Labor has a majority in its own right or not, I'm not sure.
If there's a hung parliament, that could deliver significant power to minor parties and independents, the real wild cards of this election. Hawthorn is exactly where you'd expect to find a teal independent.
Morning. I'm Melissa, independent candidate for Hawthorn.
It's an affluent inner-city seat, and Melissa Lowe is the Climate 200 funded candidate.
So initially it was like, they were surprised to see somebody running at a state level.
1, 2, 3. This is the same community campaign that unseated the Treasurer Josh Frydenberg in the federal election, and it's even being run from the same office.
The thing that a lot of people in Hawthorn are talking about is logging. They're really concerned about our native forests and the habitat loss and also the loss of species.
Until 2018, this was a safe Liberal seat. Now it's anyone's guess.
I'm the Liberal.
There may be opponents, but they rarely go toe-to-toe like this.
Daniel, your government has broken the health system.
Surely we could agree and value our nurses and our AMBOs.
Many in the crowd concerned about an expensive campaign.
Debt naturally concerns me, as it does everybody.
My question's about debt as well.
Matthew Guy says it will be lower under him, reiterating plans to shelve the suburban rail loop in favour of health.
You cancel the suburban rail loop, you're kind of cancelling the suburbs as we know it.
You should be very aware of politicians telling you you can have everything, because we can't.
Labor had promised to detail the project's full cost before the election, but now says that's difficult.
What's built in the 2040s and 50s will, by logic, be a matter for future governments.
Neither side is yet to detail how it will pay for the billions of dollars of promises that should happen tomorrow. But the level of spending without budget repair has many economists worried.
How are we?
Syrian refugee Norma Medawer is proud to finally be an Australian citizen, but the state election has her feeling left out.
It feels great to know that you're able to participate and you're able to give your voice. But on the other hand, I didn't feel that I get enough information.
She runs a community group for Arabic women where a lot of people feel the same way.
The only thing we know is voting is compulsory. So sadly, people go to vote just because they don't want to get fined.
Migrant Support Organisation Aims Australia surveyed more than 100 new voters, and almost half said election information was hard to find.
A lot of people told us that they couldn't access information about the election or about what the various political parties stand for in their own language or in ways that's sort of accessible to them.
In Melbourne's outer southeast, close to 21,000 new Australians are expected to cast votes. The Cranbourne Community Centre runs a program to teach them how.
Voting can be very daunting and confusing for them, so I think there definitely needs to be a lot more support structures for the broader community.
Here at the Broadmeadows Early Voting Centre, the Victorian Electoral Commission has been trialling a QR code system, allowing people to access video information in different languages. Statewide, VEC interpreters have been running voter outreach sessions, but many first-time voters say they haven't seen any of these supports. Many feel it's a disservice not just to migrant communities, but the state as a whole.
They will miss a lot, and they will miss our voices.
Roseanne Maloney, ABC News, Melbourne.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, up to date on Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times, Centrex multimedia streaming services. And hey, it's always good to have your company. Well, right now, New South Wales nurses and midwives work of the job, and this has been an ongoing problem.
Now! Unrelenting pressure.
Ratio! When do we want it? Now!
Playing out in front of Parliament again. But it didn't stop at Macquarie Street. The rally looped the city to be heard at the government offices. The cry also stretched to Bega, Wagga Wagga.
Shame on our government.
And Newcastle.
Our health system is totally failing at the moment.
It's a clear sign that complaints about pay and calls for mandated nurse-to-patient ratios will only get louder and perhaps more desperate.
Shame! It's pretty dire out there on the floor. People are dying.
It also results in increased violence and aggression on the ward. I've had 2 spinal surgeries as a result of being assaulted on the ward.
The union is reaching a crescendo in its campaign, seizing the opportunity presented by an election in March.
Mr Perrottet, I can't wait to vote you out next year.
We have a commitment from the ALP that will deliver ratios into ED, ICU, MPSs, maternity services.
There's always a political element to these actions, but they're not often so blatantly partisan, which is a reflection of the time in the election cycle. What nurses want, though, mandated ratios through legislation, isn't being offered by either party.
It's better, we think, for the state to have that through the award system rather than through law.
And I'm sympathetic to their views, but I also know that at the end of the day, the ratios we have are the ratios they negotiated with the former Labor government.
The Health Minister is meeting with the union tomorrow. Ashley Raper, ABC News.
There you go. That has been an ongoing saga. Well, overworked and understaffed. And of course, we know that the health area it should be the focus of the government. And because we are proud of our health system, if we compare ourselves to many other countries. That's what, if you compare it that way, we are way ahead. But of course, everyone's, working conditions, pay rates and rights, etc., need to be upheld as well. On the other hand, the plagued Qantas is now upgrading its budget forecast for profits.
Jeff Goodfellow is cutting up his Qantas frequent flyer membership. He's angry about recent flight cancellations.
If they don't fill the plane doesn't fly, basically.
While Jeff's unhappy, Qantas's finances are on the up. In just a month, the airline has lifted its profit forecast by $150 million and now expects half-year earnings of between $1.35 billion and $1.45 billion at the end of December. The carrier also expects its net debt to be between $2.3 billion and $2.5 billion, about $900 million better than previously forecast. Domestic airfares are at record highs. A discount airfare from Melbourne to Sydney in January was half of what it is this December. It's a similar story with the Adelaide-Sydney route, a 2-hour flight at nearly twice the price.
Fuel prices being impacted by the Ukraine war. There's lots of elements that are feeding into these higher fares. But having a lack of capacity or seats out in the market also feeds into higher demand points.
In July, Jeff paid $920 to fly with Qantas from Adelaide to Melbourne and back.
I mean, that's a joke, isn't it, really?
The profit boom at Qantas comes after taxpayers handed out more than $2 billion in subsidies to the airline to keep it afloat during the pandemic. In August, the company announced it would buy back $400 million of its own shares, which boosted the price, and CEO Alan Joyce is set to take home millions in bonuses on top of his $2.1 million base pay.
These profits show that Qantas are charging prices that are way too high and is in a very good position to repay some of the incredible generosity that Australian taxpayers showed them when times were tough.
Qantas says it has no plans to repay the government subsidies. Rihanna Whitson, ABC News.
Of course, businesses run on the proviso that they will make a profit. If they don't make a profit, business is not viable, and then it cannot employ people. Simple as that. But of course, when we're looking at the services and other things like that, that's another matter, and it should always be upheld. Otherwise, you lose customers, like you saw him ripping up his frequent flyer account. I'd probably have done the same not too long ago with Qantas.
Two of the biggest fashion retailers in Australia have been named and shamed for failing to commit to transparency over where their clothing is made and how much their workers are being paid.
Zara and Jeans West have been singled out in Oxfam's annual Naughty or Nice list, which congratulates brands that commit to paying living wages and calls out those that could do better. Oxfam CEO Lynn Morgaine joins us now from Sydney. Lynn, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So why are Zara and Jeans West on your naughty list?
Oh, well, in both cases, these brands had initially made commitments to a living wage, which is the central premise of the Oxfam campaign. But since that time, they've failed to provide the necessary information that would enable us to test that commitment. So essentially, shoppers are left with a commitment, but without any detail.
OK, so what commitments are you actually seeking from these two companies?
Yes, so the commitment of the campaign is what we describe as a journey. Initially, we ask brands to commit to providing a living wage for the women who make our clothes. But as time goes along, obviously that needs to be verified. So what we're asking this year is that brands commit to a wage gap analysis that would enable us to understand whether what they're paying in their contracts does actually translate to a living wage for the women who make our clothes.
OK, so they're on the naughty list, but quite a few clothing manufacturers dominating the nice list as well. Take us through some of those and why you think they're doing better jobs.
Yeah, sure. So Lorna Jane is leading the pack and in fact have created their own new category this year in the nicest, and that is because they have led the pack in moving towards this wage gap analysis. So they get a big gong for that. But in general, the reason that brands are regarded as nice is because they have provided sufficient information to enable us to verify their claim and because they are working towards ascertaining whether, in the context of inflation and a range of other kind of global pressures, whether the funds that are actually getting to the women do translate to be a living wage. So this is a journey, Brands realise that shoppers care. They're working very hard to provide the right types of information, but it is a complex journey and they do need to have a corporate commitment. Otherwise, they'll find, like some of those other brands, they'll drop to the bottom of the list if we don't see that progress.
Yeah, good point. And finally, we are on the eve of the Black Friday sales, so this survey well-timed. You want shoppers, obviously, to at least try to bear some of this in mind when they hit the stores physically or online to buy clothing tomorrow?
Yeah, well, this is a big spending time. Leading into the sort of end-of-year celebration session is a time where people really do make quite a significant range of purchases and they think about them. So it's an ideal opportunity for you to look at your Christmas list, look at what you're thinking of giving to others or perhaps the treat you're buying for yourself, and using that power to reward those brands that, from Oxfam's perspective, have done a terrific job of moving us to a place where we can lift millions of women out of poverty. This is really important stuff.
And once again, that argument about where the clothes are made and how much is paid to the workers there. Again, this has been an ongoing saga before as well. Some supporters would just say, if they're getting a good product in the country and they're paying what it's worth in that country, so be it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, moving on, it's time to go to our daily India report, and it's wonderful to have your company on this Thursday, the 24th of November.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. India and UAE review bilateral ties in areas ranging from food security to two-way trade. The trade is projected to surpass $88 billion in the current fiscal year following the signing of a free trade deal.
Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and his UAE counterpart Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan met in New Delhi on November 22nd to review bilateral ties in areas ranging from food security to two-way trade, which is projected to surpass $88 billion in the current fiscal following the signing of a free trade deal. The foreign ministers of India and the United Arab Emirates reviewed relations in different areas, especially trade, investment, food security, energy, defense, space and education. They also exchanged views on the global situation, various regional hotspots and cooperation between the two sides at the United Nations Security Council. The UAE is India's third largest trading partner after the United States and China, and also one of the country's most important strategic partners in West Asia. The Emirates is home to 3.5 million Indians, one of the largest concentrations of expatriates in the region. Sheikh Abdullah arrived in India with a high-level delegation on November 21st for a two-day visit. The ministers noted that bilateral trade had shown appreciable growth since the Bilateral Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement came into force on May 1st. Both countries are discussing trade in Indian rupees and dirhams and making use of India's unified payments interface as a payment platform for remittances from the 3.5 million Indian community in the UAE. The new I2U2 grouping, which brings together India, Israel, the UAE and the US, is also working in the field of food security and clean energy. India and the UAE are discussing investments of $2 billion from the Emirates to develop food corridors in India and another $300 million for building a 300 gigawatt hybrid wind and solar power plant.
Australia has cleared the Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. This agreement will enable India to tap into Australia's vast and rich mineral resources.
The Australian Parliament has ratified the Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, adding another pillar to the already growing strategic relationship between the two countries. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who is slated to visit India in March 2023, made the announcement on November 22nd through a tweet in which he tagged his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi. The AIECTA is an initial trade agreement which will finally culminate into a much bigger pact, Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, now under negotiations. Under the AIECTA, which will come into effect by December, India is hopeful that it will be able to tap into Australia's vast and rich mineral resources, enabling it to reduce dependence on China. India will be able to now import coking coal and uranium from Australia for zero duty, even as New Delhi will seek to enhance services trade between both the complementary economies. India believes the AIECTA and CACA will also integrate it with the trading network and supply chains of the Mega Trade Pact, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership that entered into force earlier this year. The RCEP is a free trade agreement among 14 countries: Australia, New Zealand, Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, China, Japan, Laos, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea, Malaysia, Myanmar and the Philippines. India walked out of the RCEP in November 2019 due to China. In November 2020, it decided that New Delhi has the option of joining the pact in the future.
Indian Defence Minister emphasizes the centrality of ASEAN in the Indo-Pacific region at the Maiden India-ASEAN Defence Ministers meet held in Cambodia.
The first India-ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting was held on November 22nd at Siem Reap, Cambodia to commemorate the 30th anniversary of India-ASEAN relations. The year 2022 has also been designated as the ASEAN-India Friendship Year. The meeting was co-chaired by Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Defence of Cambodia General T. Ban. It preceded the 9th ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting plus scheduled to take place on November 23rd. Rajnath Singh emphasized that the centrality of ASEAN in the Indo-Pacific region is the cornerstone of India's Act East policy. During this Maiden India-ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting, the Indian minister proposed two major initiatives for further expanding the scope and depth of the India-ASEAN defence relations. One of the initiatives proposed by him was the India-ASEAN Initiative for Women in UN Peacekeeping Operations, which includes the conduct of tailor-made courses for women peacekeepers of ASEAN member states at the Centre for United Nations Peacekeeping in India and the conduct of a tabletop exercise in India for women officers from ASEAN, incorporating facets of UN peacekeeping challenges. Rajnath also underlined the importance of women officers in peacekeeping missions for ensuring lasting peace. On the sidelines of the meeting, Rajnath Singh held bilateral meetings with US Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin and his counterparts from some other nations.
The interview waiting period for Indian visa applicants is once again increasing as staffing at US missions in India is still to get back to pre-COVID levels.
The interview waiting period for first-time visitors in the business and tourist category visa applicants in India continues to climb, even as the US State Department on November 22nd said that the global median wait time for a tourist visa interview appointment is under 2 months as of now. According to the US State Department website, the waiting period for B1, B2 applicants requiring an interview is 999 days in Mumbai, 994 days in Hyderabad, 961 days in Delhi, 948 in Chennai and 904 in Kolkata. This means that the waiting period is fast approaching 3 years for first-time visitor visa applicants or others who do not qualify for a drop box application or interview waiver in India. Therefore, a first-time B1, B2 applicant may now get a date for an interview in late 2025. To be sure, the US in the past 2 months is taking a number of steps to reduce the waiting period in India, but given the backlog and number of applications, it may take several months before the interview appointment wait period comes. As of November 2022, the global median wait time for a tourist visa interview appointment is under 2 months. Emergency appointments are available within days for applicants who meet the criteria. We are committed to reducing wait times as quickly as possible, the US State Department said in a tweet. While visa applications are almost back to pre-COVID numbers, staffing at US missions in India to process the same are likely to get back that level only in about 9 months or by late next summer.
Indian equity market gains momentum after 3 days of declines as investors buy IT and metal stocks.
After 3 days of risk aversion, the Indian domestic market experienced a relief rally in response to a bullish trend in global markets. The tight COVID lockdown in China, however, has negatively impacted the forecast for global growth. Equity indices staged a pullback on November 22nd after 3 days of declines as investors scooped up IT, metal and consumption stocks amid a largely positive trend overseas. A recovery in the rupee added to the momentum. Overcoming a wobbly start, the 30-share indices climbed 274.12 points or 0.45% to settle at 61,418.96. On similar lines, the broader NSE Nifty gained 84.25 points or 0.46% to 18,244.20. IndusInd Bank topped the Sensex gainers chart with a jump of 2.64%, followed by NTPC, Ultratech Cement, Titan, Infosys, TCS, Larsen & Toubro and Tata Steel. Only 5 counters closed with losses: Nestle India, Bharti Airtel, Power Grid, HDFC Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank slipping up to 0.76%. FII interest has also reduced significantly as a result of the increased likelihood of stricter Fed policies. In the absence of any major triggers, the performance of the global indices, especially the US markets, is expected to dictate the domestic market trend.
The former Miss World and Indian actress Manushi Chillar has bagged the Outstanding Debut of the Year award for a role in Samrat Prithviraj at the Filmfare Middle East Achievers Night 2022.
Indian beauty queen and former Miss World Manushi Chillar, who keeps making the headlines for all good reasons, has once again topped the charts as she was recognized with an award at the Filmfare Middle East Achievers Night 2022. Manushi, who marked her Bollywood debut with Samrat Prithviraj opposite Akshay Kumar, received the Outstanding Debut of the Year award. The beauty queen, thrilled with her victory, took to Instagram to announce the news through an emotional post captioned, "Debut films are special, but winning awards for your debut film is an even more special feeling. Thank you at Filmfare Me for validating my effort as an actor in #Samrat Prithviraj and for honoring me with the Outstanding Debut of the Year award. Promise to work harder in every film that I do and try and win all the love that I can get from here on." Many iconic figures were present on a starry night and looked their glamorous best. For the event, Manushi adorned a striking yellow and pink velvet gown with a puffy bow and trained by designer Layat Malouf. Last year at the same event, Manushi was felicitated with the Social Good Award for a Beauty with a Purpose Project Shakti.
Ajay Devgan released the teaser of his upcoming directorial Bhola on November 22nd. The film is the official Hindi remake of Tamil film Kaithi.
जिसको पता था वो बचा नहीं। कहते हैं कि जब वो भस्म लगाता है तो न जाने कितनों को भस्म कर देता है। भैया का नाम क्या है? नाम बताया ना तो तू पैरों पे गिर जाएगा।
Bollywood Singham actor Ajay Devgan has shared the first teaser of his new directorial Bhola, in which he plays the titular role as well. Bhola is the official Hindi remake of the 2019 Tamil superhit Kaithi. The teaser shows a woman searching for a girl named Jyoti in an orphanage. The girl is told she must not stay up late as someone will come and meet her the next day. Soon the girl is seen counting what constitutes family members. Mom, dad, grandpa and grandma, who else is called a relative, she wonders. We then get to see a prison as the titular character is introduced with an air of mystery and fear. Ajay can be seen reading the Bhagavad Gita in prison as the jailer tells him it is time to step out. A prisoner describes him, no one knows who he is and where he came from, and those who did are dead. It is said he turns people to ashes when he smears ashes on his forehead. We also see a glimpse of the action as Ajay Devgan runs his bike into a car before jumping onto with a trishul. Sharing the teaser, Ajay tweeted, "कौन है वो जिसको पता है वो खुद लापता है." Abhishek Bachchan was among the first ones to react to the teaser. "Superb, can't wait," he wrote and posted a few fire emojis. The original film revolved around an ex-convict who decides to meet his daughter for the first time after being released from prison but gets caught in a face-off between the police and the drug mafia. Bhola also stars Amala Paul and Tabbu. It is Ajay's fourth outing as a director after You, Me Aur Hum, Shive and Runway 34, which was released earlier this year.
That's all for this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
And thank you, Ankita, for that Daily India Report. Ladies and gentlemen, it's right now time to go to our functions and events taking place right here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you today. Hey, it's been wonderful having your company. Always so good to see you on the show. Well, as I mentioned before, that tomorrow is a very special day, being the White Ribbon Breakfast by Queensland Premier. So there might be some disruption in the timing that we go to air if we get back here into the studios in time. Otherwise, we'll have the show later in the day, but you will be notified of the time change if it happens tomorrow. Well, once again, it's been wonderful having your company. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us. We will see you once again tomorrow, and have a wonderful rest of this day.